Hey guys, it's a perfect day for riding, and I'm excited because we got a new one from Ride1Up. I haven't covered their bikes for a little while, and this one's, it kind of breaks the trend. Most of their products are hub motor driven, and a lot of them have a throttle. Now this one is a class 3 speed pedelec, meaning it goes 28 miles per hour to 45 kilometers per hour, and it's a mid-drive. Very interesting. So really good weight distribution. The battery is actually built into that down tube. It releases from the bottom, and I'll show you that a little bit later. And then it's a rigid fork, which is really interesting to see. It's paint matched, almost bladed, blends in with this custom paint. It's set up for commuting or maybe touring, depending on how far you're going. It's got these tubular aluminum alloy fenders, really nice rear rack, and then this comfort-oriented handlebar. It's sort of a one-size-fits-most setup here, 19-inch frame. I've measured all the specs back at ElectricBikeReview.com. The interesting thing is they have a couple different versions of this. So they have the Prodigy XR, that's the high step that we're looking at right here, and they have the Prodigy ST, and that's a step through. So it's a double tube design. Probably makes the frame a little bit more rigid, and it's going to be more approachable. I think it's a sort of a custom geometry too, so that one might actually be physically smaller. Think of like a his and hers setup. Now they also have an XC. So the Prodigy XC is slightly different. Kind of looks similar, it's got the same base name, but that one is more of a cross-country mountain bike, and it has a suspension air fork, knobby tires, a flat handlebar versus this nice swept back one, and a narrow wide chainring, which I think is 42 tooth, whereas this one's 46. So just really interesting to see that. They're all pretty affordable. This one right here is $22.95, which for the Brose drive system and a bike that comes in a couple colors, I think that's pretty nice. Now I should say the other color, it's like this green sort of metallic. That one you do pay a little bit more for. Ride1Up is mostly direct-to-consumer company. They launched in late 2018. The founder, Kevin, is a nice guy. I've visited him a couple times, and they've been growing a lot in recent years. To see something like this really takes it to the next level, in my opinion. And I think for the price, you're really getting something special. I mean, a class 3 electric bike with a Brose drive system, which is known for being really quiet, lightweight, compact. This is the Brose TF ALU, so aluminum alloy versus magnesium. And again, just the Prodigy platform, which is new to them. So I'm gonna jump into this thing and go through some of the hardware specs and just share my thoughts. Great placement on the kickstand, and it's adjustable length. Right out of the gates, pretty good job. 40mm bolt spacing on that, so you could replace it if you want. But one of the things that I noticed is that the Brose motor, it doesn't cycle the chain backwards when you pedal, and there's not a lot of friction. So if you're like me and sometimes you're riding in the rain, especially with these fenders, if you accidentally slip off the pedal, it could come around and whack you in the shin. So be careful about that. For a rigid, like no suspension bike, it's 56 pounds, which at first I was like, that's kind of heavy. 56.3 is what I weighed it at. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, it's got these tubular aluminum alloy fenders, the rear rack, really nice integrated lights, and it started to make more sense. As a comfort guy, when I start riding farther and faster, comfort really starts to play more of a role. And on this road, it's actually felt pretty good. There are some cracks and stuff, but it got me a little excited about the XC model with the nice big suspension. Now that said, if we look at these tires, these things are almost like slicks. They've got this diamond pattern on them, and they're fairly good like volume. Okay, so these are 27.5 by 2, so 2 is like how wide they are, and they actually feel pretty good so far. You'll hear me say this a lot in my reviews, but I might replace that rigid seat post with a suspension model. This is 31.6 millimeters by 350 millimeters long. Very standard setup, easy to find and replace. And the way that this fork is set up, this rigid fork, it's an 1.1 inch steer tube. So you could actually just find maybe an SR Suntour basic spring suspension, and you could probably replace this. And given that it's black, it would tie into the bike pretty nicely. Now, the challenge is you might not be able to get this fender working with the suspension at that point. So that is one of the things, and these fenders are so nice. Another possibility, if you're someone who's a little sensitive at high speed and with vibration, is the Redshift Sports. They've got like a suspension post, and they also have a suspension stem, so you could take the edge off. These grips and this handlebar, they're already pretty nice. They give you more of an upright body position. They are locking, they're ergonomic, they're rubber. The pressure rating on these tires is actually pretty good, so that's another place that you can do some adjustments. 35 to 60 psi, so you can lower it down if you're a lighter weight guy like me, or if you just want comfort versus like efficiency and range. I think that's pretty nice. I love that these are Max Shield puncture protection, because, you know, you're riding along on a trail and you get some thorns or something. That's going to help you out a little bit. And then the TR tubeless ready, that means you could run these tubeless, but apparently the rims are not set up for that. You'd need to like have a liner or maybe swap the rims. That said, these are pretty nice to begin with. They're double wall aluminum alloy, and they've got that reinforcement eyelet for added strength. It's going to make it easier to true these, and just, they're going to be more durable. 36 hole, which is nice. So you've got extra spokes, and these are thicker 13 gauge versus 14 gauge. The rest of the setup's very traditional. 100mm hub spacing, quick release in the front. You can see that over here. 9mm axle, quick release gear. And then in the back, no quick release, which was surprising to me, because with a mid-drive, it's easy to do quick release front and rear. But then again, theft can be an issue, and so I can understand why you'd want regular hardware. But we've got quick release C-binder and front axle. So I don't know, there's little nuts under here. You could just take that cap off. 135mm standard with hub spacing, same thing, 36 hole in the rear, black spokes. Everything is really nice on this. Very good job matching. And I want to point out this little magnet down here and the sensor right there. Okay, so that's what measures your rear wheel speed to help give you that fluid, natural feel, combined with pedal cadence and pedal torque. So this Brose system is very responsive, very natural feeling. Some of the newer bikes have the magnet right here, so it's not on the spoke. It's not gonna throw off the balance on your wheel. Occasionally this magnet can get kicked sideways, and then you'll get like a read error. So if you're having some issues with your pedal assist at any point, that's the first place to check. And then from here, you can see that little black box over there. That actually combines with the controller and the speed sensors to measure shifting. So check this out, shift sensor. It's a physical shift sensor. As you're changing gears, this thing is gonna listen, it's gonna cut power to the motor so you don't snap the chain or bend the teeth on the cassette back here. And that is especially important because this is a 90 Newton meter rated mid-drive motor. You heard that right, 90 Newton meters, that's a lot. For comparison, Bosch has the Performance Line CX mountain bike model, and that's 85 Newton meters. So, you know, these companies are always trying to one-up each other, pun intended. And I feel like this motor does a great job in terms of power. And then for it to be a speed pedelec too, that's just really exciting for me. 46 tooth standard, you know, steel chainring with this nice aluminum alloy guard. It's almost like a bash guard from the bottom. It's going to protect the motor casing, and it's going to double as like pants or dress protection if your clothing is getting near that chain. I think it's great. A really tight clearance here too, so I don't think the chain is going to bounce outward or inward and derail, which is just beautiful. Back here, 11 to 34 tooth cassette, 9 speed. For me, that's like, it's like okay, 11 to 34. You could definitely have a wider spread, and for a speed pedelec, there's more potential speeds that you'd be riding at. But 9 speeds gives you a lot of little increments between, and so far it's felt pretty good. I think the bike is geared high for like higher speed, and it seems to be performing just fine. Shimano Alivio derailleur. There's no one-way clutch on this or other fancy things which you'd find on mountain models, and for a speed pedelec can be nice because it's just a little bit tighter. But again, I'm not having any problems as I'm riding on this flat paved road, and they do have a slap guard right here, and it's branded. I like that. Pretty good stuff all around. So let's talk about the crank arms. Standard 170mm length, and then we've got Wellgo pedals. Love this. This is the BMX type pedal. It's aluminum alloy with fixed pins, a little bit of extra surface area, good traction, and nice reflectors. I also just appreciate that most of the wires are internally routed through the frame, and when they do protrude, they're tucked away. They aren't going to get in the way. Love that there's 2 bottle cage bosses on this, so you could set this up with a folding lock and fluids. Very reachable, very traditional placement on those. Here's some more of the wires that I was talking about, all very nicely hidden and protected. Here's the charging port for the battery, up high, but again on the left side of the frame, which, as you can see, the bike usually kind of tilts towards the left. I tend to prefer to have all of my stuff over on this side. It's just a little bit easier to access, but that said, it's still pretty good. And I love that the charge port is proprietary, and this same plug is used for both the battery pack when it's off the bike and the frame when it's on the bike. And it weighs about 1.4 pounds. It's a 2 amp charger, so very average. And yeah, it has a removable wall side, so that makes it a little bit more compact. I would say this is just kind of standard. Interestingly, I've seen some other companies where they take the frame tubing and they actually like weld this support thing onto it. I think Gazelle has some bikes like that. This one's bolt-on, so over time you might need to tighten it up a little bit. However, you can remove it. So I think it's a worthwhile trade-off, and it's a pretty good setup. The rack itself is rated at 20 kilograms. I think a standard rating for most racks is 25, so it's a little lower capacity. You know, we're talking about like 44 pounds. The top of it is flat versus having the little, you know, circular rails, which work for panniers a little bit better, more traditional. But they do have a pannier-specific hanger right here on both sides. And this is acting as like a blocker, so I don't think the panniers are gonna hit the spokes or anything, and you might be able to use the little clip or bungee to secure it. There are no specific bungee loops for having a bungee that goes like all the way over, but you know, again, for the most part, this is pretty cool, and the light integration is just spectacular. I mean, this thing is really nice, and it says it's by Spinninga. I don't know how many LEDs are in there, but I'm going to turn it on in just a second. So as far as the rear rack, if you're using like a Yep, Next, Maxi, they kind of clamp onto the side. I think that would work pretty well. You just want to keep an eye on that weight rating and make sure you don't overdo it. For the braking hardware, we're looking at Tektro. These are 3-finger levers, adjustable reach on them, really nice actuation. They both feel very consistent. Sometimes with mechanical brakes on some of the cheaper bikes, the right brake lever, you know, it has to go farther and it just gets gummed up over time, and it's not a consistent feel. For a speed pedelec like this that weighs, you know, 56 pounds, it's really nice that not only do they have hydraulic brakes, but they went with 180 millimeter rotors front and rear, standard dual piston calipers, you know, kind of get what you see here. Nice cooling properties and a little bit more mechanical advantage with the 180s versus 160. And real quick, I want to show you the lights. So I'm just going to hold the power button on the display for a couple seconds. It takes a minute, you know, it's surprising. On most other bikes, you just kind of tap it and it's on. Once it's on, it remembers what you left it as. So I had the lights on earlier, they're on again, and I just want to show you that rear light. I mean, it's a pretty bright day out, but I can still see this, and it's visible from many, many angles. The one vulnerability here is that because it's at the very end of the rack, it protrudes just a little bit, and if this gets banged into, over time it could crack. It's a little bit vulnerable, but not too bad because of this reflector and because the fender protrudes farther. I'm thinking about these things because, again, they shipped this bike. It's in a box. Thankfully, unlike some of the other Ride1Up models, you don't have to do quite as much. A lot of this is fairly assembled. You don't have to put the fork onto the frame. You just have to turn the handlebars, add the wheel, and then the pedals. So it's not too bad, but that's one of the prices you're paying for a more affordable bike. That's part of how they keep the bike more affordable. And then up front, we've got this Bushell Shiny 80 lux on this thing, and it also has the side window. So I feel like they're doing a great job. One area they could improve further is to add tires with reflective sidewalls. It is a dark frame. You know, be careful, you can always have reflective clothing or something. But as far as the lights go, I mean, this is not just a be seen light. This is actively going to light the way because it is so bright, and because it's aimable, it's fairly adjustable. It's high enough that it's not going to hit the fender. I think they did a really good job with that. And let's do the battery. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, here's the charge port. Down here is the locking cylinder, and I feel like it's just a little bit vulnerable right here. You can see that the crank arm cycles right past it. So if the key is plugged in like that, and then you cycle past, it barely goes by, but it just feels a little like, you know, be careful. Then we're gonna unlock this, and the battery's gonna pop out on the left there. Nice. And there's a little trigger that you have to reach right here. So in order to get it the rest of the way off, you know, this weighs about 6.7 pounds. Press the little trigger and then carefully pull it off. Try not to hit the fender. You don't want to scuff this nice paint job. All in all, pretty good job. You know, again, for weight distribution, ease of getting this thing off, not too bad. So that's the proprietary plug, just inserts into the bottom of the battery like this. And I like that the pins are very separated. Sometimes you get the barrel plugs where it's like a circular thing, and I feel like they could get broken more easily if they get sheared from side to side, like if it gets kicked. This one just feels very durable. It kind of reminds me of the Bosch charging interface, so I like that. There's a charge level readout on the battery with 5 ticks. And we've got the battery stats over here, 36 volts, 14 amp hours for 504 watt hours, which is kind of standard these days. For a speed pedelec, I feel like you could drain this thing a little bit faster, but since the Brose motor controller is so responsive, it's listening for pedal torque, you do have to contribute. This isn't a bike with a cadence sensor where you just move a little and the motor goes full blast. You have to contribute on this thing, and that makes it more efficient. So to have a lighter weight pack to keep the price low, I think this makes a lot of sense. Kevin told me they're using Samsung cells, so that's very reliable, reputable. And then the shield looks like you could take it off, but I like that it's more permanently fixed to the battery versus like a plastic one that could get lost or stolen. This thing is completely, you know, combined. So you have to start it at the top like this, and then at the bottom you need to push it far enough that it kind of locks at that first step. So from here you're safe. The battery's not going to tumble out. But the next step has been a little bit tricky for me occasionally. You know, it's like you push on it, push pretty hard, and it doesn't really click all the way. I almost need to use 2 hands. I can really pull on it, and for a second I thought it was clicked, but then it comes back out. So I don't know if it's just this demo bike or if this is a challenge they have with all of them, but what I found is that if I just slam it up like that, which doesn't feel very nice. You know, this is expensive, it's fancy. I'm trying to be nice to the bike, but to really get it to like stay in there, slamming it is what's worked best for me. So I hope that helps you guys out. Again, I love that the charge port is up high and it's got this nice rubber cover. All in all, I really do like the bike, but I'm trying to point out the little trade-offs and areas that are a little bit different. Up here at the handlebars, there's the 9-speed, we've got the optical gear window, the trigger shifters, multiple shifts for the low, so you can dump the gears very quickly. The high lever, it's a one-way, so you'll hear me complain about that a lot. I like when I can use my thumb for both of them. I have to use my pointer finger to shift to high gears on this, and a lot of times I want to have my fingers on the brake lever. So minor trade-off, and that's because that's an Alivio level part versus like Dior or something a little bit nicer. Move the bike over to the shade so we can see this a little bit better. We're just gonna power it on by holding the power button on top. Takes a second. And down here we have select, lights, plus, minus, and walk mode on the bottom. So this thing is loaded with buttons. There's no like micro USB or other charging ports. I did see Bluetooth, so I think there's a Brose app. I have not used that. So I'm just focusing on this. I think this is called the Allround. It's kind of rounded color. It's got a little light sensor right there, which we can interact with. The settings menu on this thing is really, really awesome. So at the top left, I've actually turned on battery percentage, but it didn't have that initially. It was just these 5 bars. Each bar is a 20% increment. So you get a general idea, but I love that they have percentage. It's a light gray color though. So when you're way up here, the best you can do is kind of see the current speed, at least for me. Everything else is just a little bit small. You can see the assist level, it's in boost right now. It seems to have remembered what I was in when I turned the bike off, and that's same for the lights, so it's cool. It seems smart in that way. Down here we've got max speed. If I press that settings button, it's a little circle button right below the edge, it cycles through to odometer, range, time, trip distance, trip time, average speed, max speed, odometer. So we're cycling around. I wanted to get back to range. So range is really cool. In boost, it seems to think I'm only going to get 6 miles. Yeah, based on how I was riding. So I mean, I guess I was really pushing this thing. 6 miles seems like very low. I would expect at least 20, but whatever. We'll take it all the way down to Eco. That's the lowest level of assist. Now it says 99 miles. So there's a significant difference in how much power you're using with this motor, depending on the level of assist. And again, there are 4. So it's Eco, Tour, Sport, and Boost. You can also ride this like a regular bike, take it down to off, and then just use those headlights. And it's efficient enough that I think that would be fairly comfortable. I'm gonna try to do walk mode here. So again, there's a button on the bottom here. You kind of hold that for a second. I'm not sure how to get to it very easily. And now it says push. So once I start pushing, oh, maybe it's push the minus button. Maybe I need to do both. It's a little bit confusing. So I'm holding that. Now I'm pushing the minus button. And yeah, I don't think this is a one-handed kind of thing. But yeah, basically you hold the walk mode and then you push the minus button and you'd get that. And to get to the menu, we're gonna hold that circle like set button, the one that cycles through the menus. If we hold it for a couple seconds, here we go. Very, very nice settings menu. You get trip information, you can reset, or you can go to settings. We're just gonna press that settings button again. To get into this, we can change the language, Bluetooth, probably for that app, screens, display. If we go into the display, we can change it to automatic. We can change the brightness, and then we can invert the white and black. So I'm gonna do that real quick and see how the background became white now, and now it's black. I like the night mode, you know, kind of dark mode, a little bit easier on the eyes and save some battery probably. System, we can change the units from miles to kilometers if we want. The time format, the battery status. This is what I was talking about earlier. I changed it from not showing the percentage to showing the percentage because I like that level of detail. Clock, we can set the clock, shutdown time, custom assistance. I think that's, you know, so eco mode, we can go into each of these 4 modes and we can change the level, the percentage we're getting. So instead of 10%, we can take it to 11, 12, 13. Basically, you can set each one of these different assist levels to give you a custom percentage of support. Actually, let's see what they have for boost mode. 88%, so it's not even 100%. Wow, it's still very powerful. I don't think that's going to mean you go faster. It's just going to give you more torque and power, which of course is going to drain your battery faster. Let's do default settings. We take it to default, and then we go to custom, boost mode, 88. So 88 is apparently what they wanted for boost, and that is it. I'm just going to exit this, and now we can take this thing and go for a little ride. Okay, guys, as I approach the saddle, I want to communicate to you that I don't love this particular saddle. It's sort of a hybrid design, and maybe this is like prostate protection or something. Apparently it's like a unisex saddle. Sully Royale usually makes good stuff, and it does have a little light clip in the bottom. It feels soft, but when I get on it, it just doesn't fit my body perfectly. So between the rigid post and the saddle, I would probably be changing some things out. I'm gonna take it up to boost, of course, try to give you feedback on that motor, how loud it is. Very quiet so far. Because I'm in a high gear, I should have shifted down before I started, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to dump a bunch of gears all at once, no problem because of that shift detection. And you can really start to hear it once it's spinning faster. So I was purposefully pedaling quickly to try to estimate what sort of RPM support this motor offers, and I would say it's 120 plus. So that's kind of the best you could expect. I don't think you're gonna get into a situation with this bike where you're pedaling faster than the motor can keep up with, and that matters for, you know, really any bike. But imagine you're approaching a hill and you start to shift your gears down and all of a sudden you lose motor support. So this is a nice motor, like really good stuff here, and it comes back to the value on this bike. I feel like it's a really good value. I'm gonna do some more gear shifting, try to show you how it doesn't mash the gears. So hopefully you can hear that. I can definitely feel it. Anytime I shift gears, the motor completely cuts out before the gear shifts, and that's really going to protect the drivetrain, which is great. Also very comfortable up here. It tracks nicely. I'm not getting any speed wobble or anything. The bike is doing great. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm on gravel, just so you can get a sense for any kind of rattling with the fenders and stuff. I think overall it's very quiet and very tight. Brakes are working great.
Well, let's try it out. What am I doing?
So basically, I'm like reviewing
What's
this
the
bike.
vision? Okay.
The vision here is I wanted to just capture a ride. Oh, nice. Thank you.
Hopefully they work.
Oh, you're great.
So you're trying this out, you're doing a review?
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun just riding around on the road here, showing the bike. Again, I feel like Ride1Up is offering something pretty cool. I like the way it looks. I got this nice metal badge now, the bright lights, the fenders. This would be a great platform for commuters, especially because it goes a little bit quicker, keep up with traffic, and just kind of a little bit extra fun. Of course, ride safe when you're out there. As usual, I've measured all the specs on this by hand. You know, I'm weighing it, and the length and the width, the wheelbase. You can see if it fits on your car rack, and the standover height. I've only looked at the high step version, the XR. Remember that they have an ST, and then they've got the XC, which is, to me, it's a different bike, right? It's got the suspension, and it's more of a mountain bike. $22.95 on this thing. You can go back to ElectricBikeReview.com, and there's a comparison tool, so you can look at some other mid-drive models and, you know, weigh the pros and cons. I think only having one frame size is a trade-off here, and then having to do some assembly. They do offer a 1-year comprehensive warranty, and you're working with pretty good stuff from Brose. I feel that their products are pretty nice. There's also some forums back at the site, and the idea is that you can talk to people about the accessories and, you know, get some feedback about this rack. I love you guys. I'm doing my best to help and cover like a broad range of bikes. Thanks again to Kevin for answering some of those deep questions, and I love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.